and worldwide at WGNSradio.com. We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning. This is Bill Krause on a Thursday morning. A little warm day today in beautiful downtown Murfreesboro. We're pleased to have not only a top-ranking representative of the city government of Murfreesboro, but a good friend to so many people in this community for so long. Our Vice Mayor of Murfreesboro, Mr. Bill Shacklett. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. So good to be with you.
Oh, let's just...
On Election Day.
Well, let's start off talking about Election Day and and I hope this morning we can get a lot of history because you are a walking historical novel for Rutherford County. But talk about elections and election workers.
Well, I was just so impressed this morning. I'm one of those guys that wants to vote on Election Day. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to do early voting. I think it's made a significant difference in the process and encourage people that may have not been involved in the process. But talking about election days, my mom and dad were officers in elections when we were just children, when Gloria and I were little, and they would always have to get a babysitter for us on election days because they were paper ballots and would have to count ballots after the elections close on election day. So a babysitter would be with us until up into the night sometimes when it was a controversial election. But then when I was 21, Dad said, you need to take over my responsibility of working in elections. So for 30 years, before I ever ran for public office, I was an election official. And really enjoyed the friendships that I made in that process and got to see people in our community, but work with people that were registrars and machine operators. And the thing that I was reminded of this morning when I went to vote was, the technology of voting has certainly changed over the years.
Without question.
It's just remarkable. I go back to we didn't have paper ballots unless somebody had to write in, but we had mechanical machines that were operated at that time, and now the technology has changed. But the thing that I was impressed with and wanted to say thank you to all those people that are working polls today. They're the ones that actually make the elections happen. And when you go in to vote, if you'll just say thank you to the people that are there, show your appreciation for the work that they do, because quite honestly, they're there for over 12 hours. The elections precincts are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and they'll work all day long and sometimes into the night. But say thank you to those folks, because quite honestly, their civic-minded participation in the process makes it happen. And I was reminded of that as I voted this morning.
And what's fantastic, and I've always used to do this, every time I vote I do the same thing, but what is interesting is how long many of these people have been doing this. You did it for 30 years. I don't think you were an exception.
Well, there's a bunch of people. The interesting thing right now, I think, is that there are people. We always thought of it as, reconnecting with our friends. We had to check about who had babies and who had grandbabies and where were people and what kind of illnesses people were dealing with. And the thing that I, in that process that got me, and I'm not sure it's changed. I hope it will change. But older folks that maybe had to come in on a walker or struggled to get to the polls on a rainy day, they were showing up. And younger folks, well, I just don't feel like it. I didn't have time to vote. I didn't take just didn't have.
I'm going to complain.
It wasn't up there. Well, it wasn't up on their priority list how important it is. And I think, we need to not only vote ourselves, but encourage others in our sphere of influence, the family and friends that we have, to remind them to vote. I didn't do yard signs for the election, but I do have a reusable yard sign that people can pick up at the studio. It says vote. It's your right. It's your responsibility. It's a plastic sign. You can put it out in your yard during election times to remind your neighbors that it's time to vote. And even though you missed the early voting, you have until 7 p.m. today to exercise your right to vote. And like I say, it's not only your right, it's your responsibility.
And I would also say, as part of that right, take the time before you vote to look at the issues, look at the candidates, ask questions. In today's environment, politics we're not supposed to talk about, or it becomes it becomes personal. But really become interested. It's a fascinating field. And go to the polls not because the name looks nice or the first of the ballot or what have you. Go because you believe in the person or the program or the philosophy.
Well, that is part of the responsibility. We this is a phrase that you've probably heard before. We get the government that we deserve, and the issue is, the more informed voter we are, we'll deserve a better government. I'm kind of frustrated, I guess, during this, the context of politics these days. It seems like we have to. We try to define our opponent as opposed to expressing our own, what we bring to the process. And sometimes, my grandmother had a phrase I remember: "What you say about me says more about you than about me." And so I challenge our citizens. As we approach, we're going to be through the city and primary election for the state, but we still face another election in November. And my challenge to every voter out there is, consider what you say about people that oppose you, that think differently than you. Because quite honestly, that will define the future that we have. It cannot continue to be the kind of demagoguery and toxic environment where our families can't even discuss differences of opinion. We have to make a difference. And I tell my little leaguers every year, you're in charge of two things: your attitude and your actions. You're not going to establish what's a ball and a strike or out or safe, and you're not even going to decide when you play and where you play. But you will decide how you react to that, your attitude and your actions. And to let our actions define who we want to be as opposed to how we evaluate someone else. Stop the negative kind of things that really create a toxic culture. And where we don't even want to bring up issues of differences with us. Because quite honestly, I've found this on serving in public on the council. Sometimes the people that differ from me, that have a different approach or perspective than me, have added to the decision to make it a better decision. And I wouldn't have thought of that if I hadn't allowed myself to listen to those differences of opinion. So folks, don't draw lines in the sand as to you're either one of us or one of them. It's all we. We are all we, and we can change that with our attitudes and our actions as we approach the November election. We can do better. The answers are difficult. It's going to be a while getting there, but we have to commit ourselves to that process of making the system work better. And that begins with you and me.
The first thing I will tell my students in political science at the colleges that I teach, whenever you are to talk politics, actually talking about anything, start out with, in my opinion. This is the way I see it.
Excellent.
So often we have people, well, this is the way it is. Don't argue with me because I'm telling you fact, and there's no conflicting argument against fact. Always start out either in writing in their essays or in terms of verbally. In my opinion, this is the way I see it. You raised an interesting question that I always love to ask elected officials, and it's really kind of key. We love the word compromise, to get people from both sides to agree on a middle statement, a middle policy, a middle point. Can we over-compromise things that we've watered it down to such a degree it no longer has value?
Well, it's always that's always a challenge. And we again will draw that line where it needs to be drawn. I can't go any farther. But the challenge, I think, or let's say the opportunity that I think we have is to listen to each other first. People ask me about what is your role as an elected representative, and I think our role, if you're going to be effective and you're going to do your job, it starts with listening. Exactly. I think you have to be available to people and say, here, I'm willing to listen to you. And I think over the years, I think people understand that I will listen to differences of opinion. Then you have to learn. You have to do your work and not just rely upon staff or others to tell you what you think or what they think the issues and the facts are. Do your own research, and then you have to lead. Once you've come to the point, and this is another thing that comes out of my heritage
Uh-huh.
is that I'm not, and this is going to come down, this is going to stick in some people's craw. I'm not elected to do the will of the people. What I'm elected to do is to do the research, to understand the point, and then I vote my conscience, because I don't know we're not going to take a voice vote of our community on every issue, but to be diligent and work hard to understand the facts of the issue and then come to a conclusion and lead to where you think is the appropriate answer or the way to address these difficult issues. And if we do that, I think we make some progress. And making progress is really, I mean, we'll never reach the finish line.
Correct.
And accomplish everything, but we can move in a positive direction. Right now we're in gridlock because people aren't listening to each other. You're you're the enemy or you're us. You're either red or blue,
Correct.
liberal or conservative. You're one of them or one of us. And we've got to get beyond this to where we actually understand what is your thinking. You don't have to agree with somebody, but if you listen to them, you might get an understanding and a perspective that will help you make a better decision if you listen to each other.
Fantastic. And you know what is so important, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, I used to always say that an elected official is thinking of decisions for 4 years or less impact. Staff is thinking of decisions 20-year impact. And the balance between the staff with a 20-year, well, this is going to be the result in 2050, and the elected officials thinking, I'm elected to serve the public, and I'm thinking about a 4-year lifetime.
Well, I can speak for myself on that particular issue, and I think people understand. I am always looking to do what is in the best interest of our community, and that's not just a political statement. I think people know me, know that's my heart. When you're invested in our community, we were looking just the other day there, talking about our downtown and the Main Street project. My family has over 100-year experience and a commitment to our downtown. My grandfather had a dry goods business on the north side of the square over 100 years ago.
Wow.
My Uncle John had restaurants in our downtown and a drive-in in our downtown for years. My mom and dad operated the studio in our business. And then in '89, Gloria and I took over Shacklett's photography. In fact, this year and tomorrow night at the concert that's downtown, we'll celebrate our 35 years of Gloria and I having that business.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, and we took
call
over.
it a third of a century.
It is, but Mom and Dad, like I say, the business is actually over 85 years old. But Gloria and I have had it for 35 years, which is amazing. I can't imagine how quickly that time has passed. But those kind of commitments say, hey, wait a minute, we're not here for 4 years or for just the term of office. I trust the public to do what they need to do. And quite honestly, elected or not elected today, I will continue to do what to work for our community. I will continue to coach Little League Baseball, serve on boards that I serve on. I will continue to do those kind of things because it's the right thing to do, and it's how I was raised.
You see the philosophy of coaching relate to the philosophy of being an elected official?
Most definitely, because I think the issue is sometimes, we're looking for people to inspire us. Gosh, don't we want that in our politics today? Don't we want somebody that'll say, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country? If we want people to inspire us that are running for public office, we need people, and quite honestly, we need to ask that of the people that run for office now. Show us how you will inspire us and lead us, and show us the direction, because public figures in a community don't just make decisions that affect you on a daily basis. In fact, I wish people would realize that the local elections are probably more impactful than what we'll do in November as far as our daily life. And what are you going to pay for property taxes? How are you going to have services that you need? What kind of parks you're going to have?
And traffic
for sure. On a daily basis, local government is more impactful. But we'll vote. I think someone just said, we're going to vote the turnout for early voting has been significantly lower than normal. So get people inspired to say, I want to vote for something, not just vote against something. Again, that's how the
Isn't that
candidates,
life itself, though, Bill?
It is. It is. We can sit back and evaluate woulda, coulda, shouldas, or we can say, I'm gonna. And be more optimistic. I'm a member of the Optimist Club. There's several civic clubs in our community, but
Sure.
my civic club sponsored our Little League program, how I got involved with Optimist. And Optimists, I think we need to be more optimistic, but we have to make some decisions and move in a direction, our community and individual lives, in a more positive direction than what we're going down. Because the course that we've charted over the last few years of this negativity, it is discouraging. It's big. It's a bigger threat than whatever Russia
yes,
could be.
sure.
Our threat to democracy is the apathy and the complacency
And the pessimism. Sure.
that is in the hearts of our citizens, and we have to have a more optimistic, positive attitude towards the system. Does democracy work? Yes. If I work, democracy will work.
Exactly.
And not expect it. There's little things that we can do in our sphere of influence. Can we talk more positive about someone instead of being so negative about the candidates and the people that are offering themselves? Can we demand of politicians, don't tell me about your opponent, tell me about you. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your vision for our future. And then we can get behind people, and then I think the culture will change. But we have a dramatic change because we're so divided now over the us and thems. We've got to have something change, and the choice and the opportunity is there in the hearts of individual citizens.
Without going into social media, and Zach, my grandson, Zach Thomas, who's been interning at WGNS this summer on behalf of his degree at Auburn University. Zach, jump on in because you are you are the young man of the future. Politics is of interest to you. But before I call on you, I have to specifically say, when you talk about listening to people, one of the things I always teach is you must know the difference between hearing and listening. And you can be walking down the street and somebody walks down and they ask you, well, how are you doing? I'm dying of cancer. Hey, that's great. Have a wonderful day. They heard you, but did they listen? It's not only a point of hearing, it's a point of listening to heartbeat, heartache, listening to thoughts of other people and responding accordingly. When I first came to Tennessee from California 20 years ago, the one statement that I always appreciate that Tennesseans do, and I never heard this in California, somebody will say, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Even the few words, thank you for asking, creates an outreach of people to people. Zach, on all this, what do you think?
Well, especially in today's world and the younger generation, social media is all about clicks and likes and shares and follows. It's all about finding the algorithm, and once you find what you're looking for and what the algorithm thinks you're looking for, it's going to stay in that direction. That's all you're going to see. That's all you're going to hear. You're not going to see the other opinions, other differing views, and that's where you find issue. I think it creates an environment that is unhealthy for people to keep fueling what they may think is true, what they may think is untrue, and it causes a bigger divide, and it's causing the balkanization that you see in the country. What would you say to the children, the youth, my generation, to get involved in local politics, state politics, national politics?
Well, to me, and I've been asked this question several times by young people. All my life I've worked with young people. So let me tell you a little coaching idea. Prepare yourself for public service. I think a lot of people think, well, I'm going to run for office. I want to be senator so-and-so or representative so or councilman so-and-so. No, prepare your heart and your mind for public service. And it involves different things, but I think empathy is one of the biggest things that we need to have. Because often our egos and our pride can come and oversee and take precedent over empathy. And that's the danger. Because if we are thinking more about what is a benefit to me as opposed to what is a benefit to others, then we'll end up making some bad decisions, and quite honestly, it will not be sustainable over the long period of time. Eventually, that ego and that pride will catch up to you, and it will cause you all kinds of harm because you will have been thinking about yourself as opposed to thinking about others. So then surround yourself with people that know your heart, that understand you as a public servant, that understand you as someone seeking office. And then build those relationships. Vest yourself in those relationships so that when things get tough, last week we had some things happen in our community that were discouraging to me. People were painting me as something that I'm not, and a decision that I made that was not proper and right. And I was just so reminded, because of so many people that jumped and reminded me, I've got good people that understand me and understand my heart for service around me. And I valued them. Family and friends that know you. Surround yourself with that. And then prepare yourself. Find something that you're passionate about. For me, it was young people. And so I vested myself in coaching baseball and working with young people in the church and in the community. We had a coffee house here in the community, and we worked with young people at the church for a long period of time. Vest yourself in that. And then people will get to know your heart. But the people that you work with will get to know your heart and know who you are. And then that will lead you to public service and running for office. It may be at the state level, maybe at the local level, wherever it is. But the preparation is just as important as to actually winning an election. And that would be my counsel to you, is to consider preparation for public service before you actually think I'm going to run for office.
And volunteer first, like putting up signs for Bill Shacklett.
That would be an easy job. That's an easy job.
First place to volunteer. We'll be right back. We're having a wonderful chat this morning with a gentleman that brings so much to the community, not only as a member of the Murfreesboro City Council, but as a wonderful human being. Vice Mayor Bill Shacklett. We'll be right back.
This is Stan Vaught. I'm a lot like you, a husband, father, farmer, auctioneer, and community supporter. I'm now a candidate for school board in the last cases, Walter Hill, Milton, Leanna, Oakland, and Siegel communities. I believe in community schools, vocational education, and getting education back to the basics. I'd appreciate your support for school board.
Please vote for Stan Vaught on Election Day, August 1st. Paid for by Stan Vaught for School Board, Stan Vaught Treasurer.
Hi, this is Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb and Associates. You might know me as the voice of the Blue Raiders, but I want to be your trusted advisor in real estate. Whether you're buying or selling, it's time to choose Chip. Do you have a growing family and need to upsize? Are you an empty nester now and need to downsize? Are you thinking of selling your current home but just worried you can't find something else? Well, it's time to choose Chip. I'm looking to be your trusted advisor in real estate. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb and Associates.
Hey guys, this is Scott. If you're often feeling tired, lack motivation and drive, maybe you've been gaining weight or have noticed a loss of muscle mass, well, these could all be signs of low testosterone. So don't wait to find out. At Low T Center, they make it quick and easy to get your levels checked. I literally walk in, they check the level, and then I find out where I stand today. They adjust the medications as needed because it's concierge medicine for men. And they have an on-site lab, allowing you to get those results back in around 25 minutes or less. Low T Center is not your typical doctor's office. Their physicians specialize in treating low testosterone with customized treatment plans for each patient. They're experts at Low T Center. And also at Low T, your BMI and health can be evaluated for treatment with prescription weight loss medication. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Hi, this is Bob Cornell, pastor of Covenant Church right here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The answer that you've been looking for is found in Jesus and what he accomplished at the cross. You see, Jesus changes lives from the inside out. We would love for you to join us at Covenant Church, located at 1124 Brinkley Ave right here in Murfreesboro. We have services Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. and Tuesdays at 7 p.m. You can learn more about us at our Cornell Ministries YouTube channel. We want you to grow in Christ at Covenant Church.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
I've got pets. Here's Tom Sweat with AmeriCare Services Incorporated.
AmeriCare's moisture control services include mold testing, mold remediation, crawl space repair, vapor barrier, sump pump installation, radon testing, radon mitigation, and basement waterproofing. If there's something wrong in your crawl space or basement, we can probably help. Just ask for a free inspection.
893-7111. AmeriCare Services Incorporated.
For over 77 years, people have depended on WGNS to learn what's happening here at home. They still do. Now listen, Red Apple Days is this weekend in Auburn Town. That includes the Red Apple 5K Run, the Beauty Pageant, the Apple Bake Fest, the Red Apple Cruise In, and so much more. That's Red Apple Days in Auburn Town this weekend. And it benefits the Auburn Town Volunteer Fire Department. And learn more about local history. Come on over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse. Friends from the Rutherford County Historical Society will be there, and they'll answer your questions about local history. It's all free, including the coffee and donuts. That's 9 until noon this Friday at Ransom School. That's at 717 North Academy Street. Oh, the Rutherford County Library System is offering free computer classes. That's Monday afternoon at 3:30 and Tuesdays at 2:30. And they're at the Technology Engagement Center at 306 Minerva Drive. And those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
A heat advisory is in effect for the forecast area. Mostly sunny skies this afternoon, high in the upper 90s. Tonight, slight chance for storms late, partly cloudy, low of 77. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS.
Currently, it's 83.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric, who offers energy-saving tips during hot summer months. Install programmable thermostats that automatically adjust temperatures for optimal comfort and energy savings. For more tips, go to mte.com/myenergyplan.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
This is Bill Krause again on the second segment of the Roundtable Thursday morning, having a delightful and most hopefully for you all appreciating the informative visit with our Vice Mayor of the City of Murfreesboro, Mr. Bill Shacklett. We were talking more about involvement and participation and how we get people to go. We could talk about social media as being an avenue for people to express their anger by being faceless to the group and being faceless around, and they can scream and yell. I always like to raise the thesis, are we so busy as citizens of our community, state, and nation today that we just slip the political discourse as part of the discussion, and if we get frustrated, we get angry. We don't necessarily say, I want to build, I want to be positive, and so forth. And I love your thoughts and ideas of getting citizens into a meeting, into a group, and let them talk, let them hear each other. We don't listen to each other enough. So embellish the point of how do we turn this around, or can we turn it around? Unfortunately, I sometimes have a feeling that the larger we become, we move and meander into little small groups. We lack our individuality. When we were a country of 150 million, we still were small in terms of population. We're over 1/3 of a billion people in the United States. We never use the word billion to describe the population of the U.S. because it affects our individuality. We no longer think ourselves as individuals, being 1/3 of a billion people. So how do we get the individualism? And you start, and I think you were so correct a few minutes ago, at the local level. How do we get people to buy into individualism, participation, and solutions?
Well, I think it starts, especially with my generation, it starts with an outreach, because a lot of us, we're scared to voice our opinion for fear of being canceled or being argued with, because we don't want that conflict. We don't want that confrontation. If as we were talking in the break, if we start these sessions where we can come and actually voice our opinions and share what we think, I think it'll create an avenue for a discourse, a dialogue that is definitely needed, especially in my generation. I think it also promotes the individuality of people, but also creates a sense of nationalism that I think this country definitely needs.
Well, so much of, and I think the onus is always on the public officials to kind of make a move. And I think we have not only, my pastor used to say it's not a problem, it's an opportunity. And I think if we face up to the fact that the problem is there and that we have an opportunity as well and seek for that, I've been encouraged as I've looked into this. One of the really basic problems of our country this day and our citizens is the fact we don't understand the process. We don't understand civics. We're not necessarily teaching that intentionally in our schools, and we need to do that. But the city, I think, and our communities could offer our citizens a path forward by understanding civics and the process, how it works. I've often thought when we have public hearings at council, we require people to say something in 3 minutes or 5 minutes if you're speaking for a group. And that's the first time they've ever been on a podium or in front of a microphone, and I know how intimidating that can be. So helping people learn, how does the system work? Who's responsible for what? How do I engage the deliberative process? That would be helpful information for the public to know, and then also bringing people together of disparate ideas and from different points, and learning to respectfully dialogue. We were mentioning a couple of things, but another one that I'm reminded of is a thing called the Civility Project. And it was there were two journalists, one was far left and one was far right, but they were friends, and they would meet regularly for lunch and have a meal, and they thought, they'd share ideas and discuss things and go away, not necessarily moving the needle on either side, but they learned how to talk to each other, and they would learn something from the empathy that they had, or the expression of another side of the coin of our opinion. And I would love to do something like that with our community, where our citizens were invited to learn about civic responsibility, the civic process. How do I engage my local government? How can I be more effective in the process of making decisions, the deliberative process of my council? I would love to start something like that in our local government, and then I think it's not going to happen overnight.
Correct.
The issues, because we've got to learn how to do this. It's like teaching your children how to be respectful in public settings. It takes time.
The greatest conflict I had as a city manager in making decisions was deciding between consistency of the law and consistency of policy versus the individualism of the problem and the issue. And you may have a person who comes up and they'd have some factors that are unique in the problem and so forth, but you have to retain a consistency of the government and so that you're treating everybody equally and fair. I have to share with you that, and as you were talking about even holding this meeting in a council chambers, I had a student years ago when I was still teaching in California, and they did a study of city council meetings. And they went to a half dozen city council meetings where the council was sitting above the public and the other half were sitting below the public in a kind of a well. And they determined that the public input at a council meeting was dramatically changed by the physical location of the council seats. For the reason is the brand new person who comes to the Murfreesboro City Council, I don't say this critically, of course not, but the person who comes to the Murfreesboro City Council and they're seeing the seven of you sitting above, you look like judges. You're in court. Yes, Your Honor. Yes. No, Your Honor, I'm innocent. I'm not guilty, and so forth. And you almost have the psychological effect of, are you in court? Because of the physical rise of the council seats.
I don't know where that tradition started, but that makes a lot of sense.
But I have to get your opinion on this. You've been coaching Little League for a long period of time. I look at Zachary, who played baseball most of his time, elementary, middle school, high school,
years.
And so forth.
Yeah.
Yes. And I take a look at, we don't know each other well, but I've been so impressed by you as a human being, your character, your commitment, your idealism. you were coaching a team, and you have a ball player who makes that home run at the ninth inning and wins not only the game and the championship, and you've got this young man sitting on everybody's shoulder, all the accolades. How did you deal with the young man who struck out, who didn't catch the ball, dropped the ball at behind third base, the one who made an error? How do you deal with our decisions as a public if you drop the ball and strike out versus the home run and the bringing in 3 runs?
Well, it's like raising children, quite honestly.
Correct.
I've got 2 children of my own and 4 grandchildren, and I think being intentional about the foundation that we lay. You know, I heard an analogy this morning about a cup of coffee. There, when you're holding a cup of coffee and somebody bumps you, you'll say, "You spilled my coffee." The issue is, it's not that life is going to throw issues at you where you spill the coffee, but your attitude as to what's inside of you will spill out, whatever it is. It wasn't spilling the coffee. Whatever trouble will cause you, bad times either build character or reveal character. And I think that's the opportunity. In fact, it's interesting you said the story because that actually happened this year.
Oh, did it really?
Fourth inning, the 6th inning, we were behind 8-9, and a boy came up and hit a grand slam.
Oh,
and,
on your team?
On my team,
Oh.
and we won the championship.
Wow.
And the issue, but I've had the same thing happen where I was on the other side, and something happened that was bad, and we lost the game. And that's what I love about baseball, because it is like a microcosm of life. You have to learn how to deal with success in and at bat, and you have to learn to deal with gracefully with success. How do you work together? How is it not just about me and playing? It's about that whole effort of 9 people on a ball field. You know, and that's what's kept me around year after year, because there's something magical that happens. And if you played that long, you understand what I'm saying. Over a context of a game and a season, when a team comes together and they're playing for each other. We saw it with UT this year. When they were greater than the sum of their parts because they were playing for each other. And baseball provides you that kind of opportunity to learn to play with each other and learn to, and we can feel that. I mean, think of this, what you saw between people on the field when UT won the national championship. What if our communities could celebrate the success of others and the success of our process, the success of an election? I promise you this evening, regardless of how this election turns out, I will be celebrating. Because I value this process, and I trust the people that are running this. You know, all the candidates have run hard races. They've worked hard. There's a lot of good minds and good hearts that have offered themselves for public service. But celebrate the process. Value our democracy for what it is. And if we hold that up as opposed to any individual or any point of view or any perspective, then we will be better as a community, and we will be better as a state, and we'll be better as a country. And we will carry that tradition that our forefathers gave us. They valued something greater than just their own egos and their own selves. And we need to get back to that, where we see the value of the process. And I hope we can do that. I hope we can see that, and I hope we can pass that on to you, because that's to the next generation, the legacy that we leave them. I guess as I've had 4 grandchildren, I'm more mindful of that next generation and what I'm leaving, even than I was when we had 2 girls. I'm more concerned about what my grandchildren are going to face in our country: the divisiveness, the tribalism, the arrogance, the feelings of we can't work together because you're one of them. We've got to do better. We just have to do better for them. And all those grandparents out there, speak into your children good things, the belief in the system, the belief in the process, because we're not going to be around forever. And when our generation is gone, are they going to remember our generation as the greatest generation, or the one that divided us and we never could find our way back to each other?
You know, you're a member of the Optimist Club. I was a Rotarian for many years. That's okay.
Right.
But I am optimistic about the future, believe it or not. Not because I'm in dreamland or because I wish and maybe the sun will come over the rainbow. I am optimistic because part of my knowledge and understanding is looking at history. We've gone through some very, very tough times in the past. And, I'm old enough to remember the 1950s and the 1960s and the division in this country, between the civil rights program, the anti-Vietnam, and we're going into a national convention in Chicago. I certainly remember 1968 in Chicago and the huge problems that were there. But when we've gone through the down points, and I can tell you, in the 1960s, there were some very down points compounded in the 1970s by the energy crisis. I was serving a city, and we had the largest public hearing in the history of Los Angeles County. We had 4,000 people at a public hearing in a large facility.
Oh, my goodness.
And was right in the middle of the energy crunch when gas went from 50 cents to $3 a gallon
goodness.
overnight, the embargo from the Middle East and so forth. And I shall never, never forget the eyes of the people that were there. We had gone to the period, are we going to be non-energy? Does that stop our society? Does it stop that way of life? And I remember looking at the eyes of 4,000 people, the fear and the anxiety, the uncertainty. And we came out of it, and we've gone through cycles. It's rather interesting when we landed a man on the moon, 1969, the country came together. Tragically, the country comes together more when there's a tragedy, when we have an assassination, we have a major loss and so forth, and people who have not talked to each other suddenly share with each other the love and thought that has been hidden in their hearts and so forth. If there were three major things that you could put your magic wand on to make Murfreesboro, and it is an outstanding city. It is one of the most wonderful cities, not only governed and legislatively and managed, but in terms of what the community is doing. But to make Murfreesboro even better in the next 4 years, for example, what would those three items be? If you could wave that magic wand over from the top of the courthouse.
Well, there's certainly I think the fact is we've got to reevaluate where we are. Any kind of change that we move towards begins in the hearts of individuals.
Sure.
And recognizing personal responsibility. And my hope and my dream is that each of us will look in the mirror and say, is this all there is? Can I do better? And then make choices that move us in a more positive direction. Because quite honestly, it has to.
Yes.
We have to find as families and individuals, as business people, as representatives of our government, we have to find a better way to do this. And I think that begins when I make the decision to light a candle instead of curse the darkness.
Perfect.
And I think the individual choices that we make to alter our attitudes, to speak to each other in a different language, a healing language to people that we disagree with, if they change their opinion, fine, but at least they'll have that information. But whatever you need to do, make individual better choices as individuals to move our country and our state and our community in a positive direction. And I know that's not but I'm praying that will take place, and I think that will heal our land.
Right before we go to commercial, I do have to share the story in terms of hearing and listening. And you get a kick out of this sitting on a council of 7. One city that I managed for 10 years, there were 2 council members who sat next to each other at every council meeting. And both wonderful, wonderful people, but they never agreed on anything. Never agreed. So one day I said, we're going to go out to lunch. And we had the 2 of them sitting. And as we were talking, I noticed one council member was very hard of hearing in his left ear, and the other council member was very hard of hearing in his right ear. And they were sitting with the point of their ears were tuned off, and they could not hear each other. So I remember the next council meeting, I said, how about you gentlemen changing seats so the good ear is facing the good ear? They were perfect ever since.
Awesome.
You take a little thing
That's
like
beautiful,
that.
Bill. That's beautiful.
We'll be right back. We're having a delightful visit with our wonderful Vice Mayor, Mr. Bill Shacklett.
I want to learn how to cook, but I keep ordering takeout.
Accomplishing goals is hard, but when your goal is to learn a new language, Babbel makes it easy. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel will help you start having conversations in as little as 3 weeks. Words and phrases you'll actually use. So when someone asks, "How's your French going?" you can say,
Babbel facilite grandement l'apprentissage d'une nouvelle langue.
Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at checkethos.com. That's checkethos.com.
It's summertime and it's time to do more outdoors. But do you feel out of energy, lacking motivation and mental focus? It could be low testosterone. Low T affects millions of men and it happens naturally. The solution? Testosterone replacement therapy at Low T Center. I literally walk in, they check the level, and then I find out where I stand today. Right now at Low T Center, they are offering a free initial test. If you're over 30, schedule that visit at lowtcenter.com today.
Offer till July 31st. Terms and conditions apply.
Career politician Tim Rudd sold out Rutherford County taxpayers for personal gain. He sided with development lobbyists and special interest groups to oppose legislation that would charge developers, not taxpayers, for growth costs. Rudd took a $46,000 loan from a mega real estate developer a month before taking office, but failed to report it on his ethics disclosure. Rudd even put illegal immigrants over us, voting against citizenship status checks for new voters, and voting present on a bill giving business licenses to illegal aliens. Now, anti-Trump special interest group AFP, which spent over $30 million to defeat President Trump, is now backing Tim Rudd. Career politician Tim Rudd has sold out Rutherford County. Republicans have a better choice. Tucker Markham is running to put Rutherford County's values first. Endorsed by 17 local elected Republican officials, Tucker will represent our conservative Republican values. Retire Rudd. Vote Tucker Markham in the August 1st Republican primary. Paid for by Friends of Tucker Markham, Bill Tollett, Treasurer.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Bill Krause, the final third segment of the WGNS Thursday morning Roundtable special. And most hopefully you are enjoying and more importantly appreciating the insights shared by Bill Shacklett, who has been the Vice Mayor of beautiful Murfreesboro. We usually ask this at the beginning, but I feel I know you so well I didn't have to ask, but how long have you been on the council?
Well, I served 2 times. I first ran for council in 2002 to 2006, and then took an 8-year sabbatical while my girls were still in the house, and came back in 2014 and have served there for the last 10 years.
What particular things, and you've certainly alluded to it throughout this morning's visit, what particular things especially make you happy and looking back on those years as a council member?
Well, the relationships that I've had is really, you know, somebody during the course of our forums, they always ask the question, the pocket question is, what's the best thing about Murfreesboro? And I can truly say the relationships and the friendships, the people in our community are just amazing. They continue to amaze me. I serve on several nonprofit boards, and to see how generous people are with their time and their money in our community. Gotten an opportunity to meet people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet, be involved in things in our community that is just, we live in a special place. You know, there is a lot of things that we disagree on.
Sure.
But the one thing I think everybody that's listening to me and that lives in our community, this is a special place. This is a great opportunity for people to conduct business and flesh out their economic dreams with their careers. To get educated. We have amazing educational opportunities in our community, from pre-K to MTSU.
Doctorate programs.
Doctorate, yes, postgraduate work at MTSU, and the recreational opportunities that are in our community. This is a great place to raise a family. Our religious institutions, all of our churches, and are just amazing in our community. We are a blessed community, yes. And I think recognizing that can give us, I guess, the accountability, hold ourselves accountable for the responsibility we have to pass what we have experienced in our lives to that next generation.
Now, you moved to Murfreesboro what year?
Well, actually in third grade. A lot of people don't realize I was born in Twin Falls, Idaho. My dad was a wildlife photographer out in Idaho. My mom was from Idaho. My dad was from Tennessee. We've got deep roots here in Woodbury and in Middle Tennessee as well. But we lived in Twin Falls, Idaho, where Gloria and I were both born, and then moved to Middle Tennessee in third grade, and went to
Hopgood School. Did you go to?
Hopgood School. I went to Hopgood School, and that's an amazing place. I go back over. But it's funny over the years how those walls have shrunk.
Yes, they have.
You don't think the hallways would have shrunk like they have, but I do a reading in schools day over there just about every time they have one, and it so enjoy working, being with children and in the classrooms. But it just struck me walking down those hallways. I thought they were so much bigger than they are, and but such sweet memories of people that I grew up with at Hopgood. And then we didn't have middle school. We went to high school. Went right directly to high school. And my high school class of 69, Tigers. In fact, we're having our reunion here in September coming up. But it's just great friendships that have been over a lifetime with a lot of special people. And if anything that I'm proudest of is that to have been engaged in the decision-making process. Have we done everything right? Nope. Have I made every right decision? Nope. But I've learned from them. The mistakes that I've made or the bad choices that I made, I think I've learned from them. And that's all you can really promise from an elected official, I think. I can go into as I look at other races. Do the best you can and learn from your mistakes and listen. I think that's what we need to demand of our elected representatives now.
Well, I was asking you when you came. I can't estimate what the population of Murfreesboro was at that time, but the community was basically built around the downtown square and so forth, and you had East Main out toward the small college out there, et cetera, et cetera. Today you're over 150,000.
170,000.
Oh, well, you're going faster than I can keep track.
We're actually up right close to 170,000.
So you are a big city, and as you've developed as a big city, you're a collection of villages.
That's right.
Different types of demographic, different types of economic. You have populations in and around downtown, which is going to significantly increase with all of the work that is going to be downtown to create a active, dynamic center. But then you take a look at your communities on the other side of I-24. You look at communities north and east and so forth. Is there a problem bringing together a combination of villages into a central love for Murfreesboro?
Well, as long as people are going to be people.
Okay. Okay, that's a...
And I think, quite honestly, you can either decry your diversity and isolate and insulate yourself from change or individuals, or you can welcome the diversity and realize that together we are better. There's an old acronym, TEAM. Again, teach all my kids at Little
They all
League.
hit the path the same way.
That's right. Together, everyone we achieve more. And quite honestly, I think, when we do this, and if we can discover, and we've got some ground to do that for. We've got some work to do to where we appreciate our diversity as opposed to insulate and isolate ourselves from each other. Because those other people, if we can come together, if we can learn how to respectfully dialogue over difficult issues. I don't know what the issues are going to be going forward. Tomorrow there'll be a whole new set of issues probably after election, and we'll have to address them. And there's, in years to come, there's going to be all kinds of difficult things that we'll have to face. But if we respectfully respectfully dialogue over those issues and learn to listen and each other, and then we can find a common path forward as opposed to being gridlocked into name calling, finger pointing, who's going to get the blame if it goes wrong, who's going to get the credit if it goes right. If we can get beyond that as a community, we can face all the challenges of the future and be the better for it.
I used to always use this expression as well as others in city government. I think it's true that everybody has to adapt this. Anybody who comes up with a problem or issue, I would without exception always start out, I'm going to give it my very best, but I can't guarantee I'm going to make you happy. I can't guarantee there's a solution that will make you happy. I can't snap my fingers and say, go away, bad thing, I'm going to make it happy. You have to be honest by saying you've got to give it your very best, but you can't always have your very best what the person who's raised the question with. I have to ask you this also as an elected official. We'll make you a number of years younger, and you have your two girls are young, they're in elementary school, and you're running a campaign. And the campaign is as nasty as it can be. And there's an opponent who not only leaves horrible things at the front door against you, your girls go to school and schoolmates say, your father is a real horrible man, because that's what my parents say. How do you deal with the person going into politics? They may have big shoulders, they may have a forgiving heart, even their spouse may have an understanding. But how do you protect children of elected officials or candidates against hate?
It's establishing that foundation of relationships.
Yes.
We had a thing when my two girls, and they're all grown now, and they
Sure.
have two
And you
girls
have
of their
four
own.
grandkids,
Four
yeah.
grandkids. But we had a thing, I called them BDTs, Bedtime Daddy Talks.
Oh,
and
talk about that. That's so neat.
I'd encourage you. You can flesh it out any way you want to, but to me, I have such special relationships with my daughters, and I think it started with the BDTs. Bedtime Daddy Talks, and we'd always go in and say their prayers, before they went to bed, and if they had something, somebody at school had said boo to them, or somebody didn't say boo to them, and they wanted to flesh something out, they'd say, Daddy, I need a BDT. And so I would sit there, and what I had to learn, guys, we're wired different than girls,
Yep.
So what I learned over that process was say very little and listen a lot. And I would sit in the dark and stare at the ceiling with my girls until they started the conversation. And what I tried to remind myself they needed to hear wasn't, well, you need to do this, which was my natural inclination as a guy. You got a problem, here's the answer. What they needed me to say was, tell me more about that. How did that make you feel? Questions like that elicit more conversation. And it was amazing because, Bill, quite honestly, at the end of, if I did this effectively, and I'm not like Andy Griffith, I didn't always do it. I didn't do it right all the time. But when I did it right, they would say, oh, Daddy, I really thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And I knew I didn't say anything great.
Sure.
It was my opportunity that I gave them to vent their feelings and listen to the children.
Won't be laughed at or angered
No,
with.
and Dad and Mom are a place of refuge and acceptance and love. And lay that foundation when they're young. Do that for your children when they're young, and you'll have them for a lifetime. Because my girls still call me. One of them's in Chattanooga in the Hickson area, and the other one is actually a pastor.
Oh, really?
In Atlanta, in Decatur. And she and her husband both. He's a campus minister, and she's a family and children's minister. But we still have that relationship. They'll call me in the middle of the day, and we'll be processing something that's happened or something that's coming up. And I'm just treasuring. We just got back from family vacation, which was so neat to be
Where'd you
together.
go?
Well, Northeast Georgia.
Oh,
It was
okay.
easy for both of them, and
Up in the mountains
up in the
there.
mountains,
Yep.
Blue Ridge and LJ area. But what was precious, like we were driving home the other day when we came home, and she said, what did you enjoy most about it? And I said, the fact that we still enjoy being together. We can still be a family. And nothing sweeter than, we were in a kind of a loft of this cabin, and I get up early, 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and I would hear these little voices, because they went to bed at 7 o'clock at night and would get up real early anyway. But I would hear these little voices wafting over the loft, Papa, 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 and my girls would both say, as soon as they wake up in the morning, it's like they want to see Papa. And you talk about warming somebody's heart.
Sure.
It just made the difference. But it's that we be intentional about establishing those kind of relationships that make a difference in the lives that are important to you. Invest in that, and then what comes out of you, what you put into you, what comes out is not something you have to fake or you have to put on a show to do it for a campaign or do it because it's in the public eye. It's just who you are, and you don't have to think about it. You know, I had somebody tell me once that the transition from in Christianity comes before when we have to put on Christ-like behavior, or we are Christ-like behavior. And to me, that's the difference in my faith. And it hasn't been always that way. Let me tell you, it wasn't always like that in my life. But something has happened in the last few years that I really understand that, like I've never understood it before, is that it's not something I have to act like a Christian or be a Christian in that sense. It's just who you are. And it's because God has poured into you something of value. And so what comes out of you in your words and in your actions is something that's edifying, something that brings wholeness and peace and blessing to the world, as opposed to divisiveness and selfish and prideful behavior, which brings brokenness. And I think we need to accentuate that and claim that for ourselves and move in that direction. And God will do a lot of that, make that happen.
Yeah, I just got the thought as you were talking. Maybe WGNS could have an evening show, Bedtime with Constituents.
BDC.
Yes,
BDC.
You know, that would be really kind of...
Well, you know, the interesting thing, you can do it to a wall. If you think that wall's listening. And quite honestly, that's been the difference in my life is my prayer life and my meditation has changed over the last few years, and understanding that even when I'm speaking to the wall or I'm meditating over the occurrences in my life, someone's listening, and he's he's been special to me, and he's changed my life, and he's made all the difference in my life.
And they're listening through you to listen to Murfreesboro, and you're listening to Murfreesboro.
Thank you, Bill.
How often when you're at the store, or you're at Home Depot, or your Lowe's, what have you, that people come up to you, they know you? I would imagine the recognition of you is so significant, not only because of your years in Murfreesboro, but because you care about people, and caring is the name of the game.
Well, there's always, you know, those are really affirming. I had several comments this morning, affirming words and texts from people in the community that we've shared life with.
Sure.
And you know, I guess it would serve us well every so often to look at the people that are sharing life with us. And you know, my grandmother said something a long time ago that I remember. There's a little 2-letter word that doesn't cost you a thing to use, but we need to use it liberally. And we need to be thoughtful as to how we share that with, because it means a lot to the people that we share that with. And so today, you know, use it. And that little 2-word phrase is thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the people that are in our lives. Thank you for the people that share life with us. Thank you for the community that we live in. And, you know, that would be an important thing for us to remember as we approach this election, but every election.
And one more notice to everyone who's listening who hasn't yet voted, not only in Murfreesboro, but throughout Rutherford County and throughout our radio audience. What would you tell them?
Vote. It's your right, and it's your responsibility.
Thank you so much. I'll use the thank you, and I truly mean it 110%. Thank you, Vice Mayor Bill Shacklett, for joining us, not only in joining us, but providing us inspiration. And you provided us, my grandson Zachary, you provided myself, and most hopefully the many listeners out there in our radio audience. Thank you again. Be well, be healthy, be happy, and continue your fine work.
Thank you, Bill and Zach. Thank you.
Thank you.